O Grupo Eurásia é a principal consultoria de risco político mundial. Hoje em dia, quando os investidores vão aplicar dinheiro em algum país, eles consultam o Grupo Eurásia para ver qual é o risco que eles estão correndo, o risco político.
You know, the world has economic recessions on average every 7 to 8 years since World War II, and we get used to the boom and bust cycles. But we've not seen a geopolitical recession since 1945. We're in one now. We focused on globalization for decades now. We focused on connectivity for decades now. We focus on the discontents, and we focus on a world order that's starting to come apart without anyone knowing what comes next. From that perspective, 2017 is an unprecedentedly volatile political risk environment.
So let's move to the top risks of 2017 that you just released. You call it the geopolitical recession. Why?
Well, you know, people understand the notion of a recession, right? Economic recessions happen every 7 to 8 years on average since World War II. We even have a technical term. You're in technical recession if your country has negative growth 2 quarters in a row. We know what the boom cycle is. We know the bust cycle. Well, it turns out that geopolitics have boom and bust cycles too. And the last time we had a recession, geopolitically, was World War II. Since then, the United States was in charge of the boom cycle, the Pax Americana. We created the global architecture and institutions and alliances, first all by ourselves, then with the challenge from the Soviets and the Cold War, then they collapsed in 1991, then by ourselves again. But since 1945, there's been a geopolitical boom cycle. But of course, anyone that looks at the history of the world knows that a small country like the United States, given the size of the global population, extremely unusual to have them control the global order for a long period of time. So the end was coming. If Hillary Clinton had been elected president, it would have happened over a longer period of time, more smoothly, and America would have had more of a role in determining what came next. But with the election of Trump, the end of the Pax Americana is now.
We've defended other nations' borders while refusing to defend our own. And spent trillions and trillions of dollars overseas while America's infrastructure has fallen into disrepair and decay. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Cette élection américaine ouvre une période d'incertitude. Ce contexte appelle également à une Europe unie et également capable de s'exprimer et de porter une politique partout où ses intérêts ou ses valeurs sont en cause.
We don't care if you have values that align with ours, but tell me if you can get us a good deal. That independent America is trust between major countries around the world. It's going to weaken the architecture and the alliances. It'll fragment global standards. And I hate to say this, but it also makes war more thinkable.
This independent America is part of the global reaction against globalism, right?
Yes.
So what explains that?
Well, I think there are a few things, maybe 3 things that I would focus on. The first is that globalization did not help everybody.
Yeah.
It helped the top 1%, maybe even the top 10%, and then it helped the global middle class. But the middle class.
So many people came out of poverty, right?
Yes. I mean, China, globalization in 35 years, on average, almost 10% growth. Brazil, India, I mean, the BRICS. This is the story of the emerging global middle class. It's because of globalization. Number 2, immigration. Globalization wasn't just about taking your production outside your country, but it's also about talent coming in. And it's not just an economic talent issue, it's also people that look different, people that act different, that have different cultures. And what we see is that in the United States, there are a whole bunch of white men that look around and see the world and America as becoming females matter more, right? Hispanics matter more, and they're growing in number. Asians matter more. Blacks just became the president of the United States. They don't feel comfortable.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans. We will follow two simple rules: buy American and hire American.
Third point, connectivity. The first billion people that had access to the internet were either wealthy people from the developed world or they were elites in emerging markets. You now have billions of people connected to the internet. Most of them are poor. And those people are not happy with the status quo. And they are more capable, because they have these communication devices, of both getting information on how others live and also using their voice and connecting with others that are like them to expand discontent. Clearly, if the technology that right now is becoming the biggest threat to new jobs, not globalization, it's about automation and artificial intelligence. It's about 3D manufacturing. If those are the things that take away jobs in the next 10 years, not just in the United States, but in Brazil, then anti-globalism is going to grow a lot more in emerging markets too.
O Reino Unido escolheu um destino que desconhece. As empresas avaliam a necessidade de se realocar. Os britânicos questionam o impacto no bolso, no valor da casa, no salário, no emprego.
We should make clear that for the foreseeable future, there is absolutely no change in Britain's trading relationships with the EU or other markets. The legal status of British nationals living or working in Europe will not change, and neither will the status of EU nationals in Britain.
I'm now in a position for the first time in my career where I truly believe that the biggest threats to the global marketplace are not economic, they're political. I've never said that before.
O nome de Trump não foi mencionado uma única vez, mas Xi Jinping aproveitou a oportunidade para criticar os que culpam a globalização pelos principais problemas do mundo e disse que buscar o protecionismo é como se trancar numa sala escura.
经济全球化确实带来了新问题，但我们不能就此把经济全球化一棍子打死，而是要适应和引导好经济全球化。
If the United States doesn't want to lead, the Chinese will do more. This is a very different China from 10 years ago that was saying, oh, we're small, we're poor, don't pay attention to us. Now they're saying, we want globalization. We want to be in charge of peacekeepers. We're going to support the new United Nations Secretary General. We're going to put more money in. We're going to spend $1 trillion outside our borders on One Belt, One Road, and we're going to do infrastructure. And we want our trade architecture. You've got the Chinese RMB in special drawing rights basket for the IMF now, right? I mean, all of these things are changing. But let's also be clear that Trump, as president-elect, has already said a number of things to China and about China, which are deeply worrying for the Chinese government, on Taiwan, on the One China policy, on North Korea, and on their nuclear weapons and what China is and is not doing to help ensure that they do not continue to develop, on Chinese currency manipulation, on IP, on tax, on trade. And the Chinese have already started to hit back with a fine against General Motors, with military activities South China Sea, also outside Taiwan. So I think that Trump is very likely, and we've seen this from his appointments to cabinet, on trade in particular, he's very likely to come out swinging against Beijing.
Let's say China. 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 We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs.
So this is a bad time for Trump to be fooling around on Taiwan or tweeting on North Korea.
North Korea, you say in the report, is going to be a real risk in this year, right?
Yes, and that was before, I said that before Trump decided to start tweeting about them, you know. First of all, Trump, don't tweet. And secondly, if you are going to tweet, don't tweet about North Korea, because the North Koreans are more unpredictable than Trump. He said that the North Koreans will not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon on a missile that can hit the United States, the mainland U.S., that he's going to stop them.
Well, it won't happen.
How's he going to stop them?
A Coreia do Norte afirma que está em fase final de desenvolvimento de uma arma nuclear capaz de atingir partes dos Estados Unidos. Isso não vai acontecer.
You can see the constellation here. In the last few years of the Obama administration, these were relationships that they weren't easy, but they were reasonably well managed. And Obama had lots of foreign policy problems, but not this one. This is looking like, you know, a real confrontation. And North Korea in the middle of it, the world's only truly remaining totalitarian state. And they've got a lot of cards to play because there are no real constraints on them. You know, what are we going to do to them? I mean, these guys could destroy Seoul, South Korea within 24 hours just using conventional artillery. They don't actually need nukes. So, you know, how much do you want to push them?
You wrote, Europe has never needed a strong Merkel more. In 2017, she'll be unavailable for the role.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that we know that there are crises that hit Europe. They've hit Europe since the 2008 financial crisis. We had the Eurozone crisis, and of course, all of these, you know, economic implosions from Greece to Spain to Portugal. We've got now Brexit, which they have to work through. It's going to take many years. The Italians just lost their referendum. We've got a big French election coming up in 2017. We've got refugees. We've got big terrorist problems. The one thing we've been able to rely on since 2008 is the German Chancellor has the strength and willingness to respond, to lead a response with the ECB. 2017, Merkel's much weaker. She's going to win. I mean, you know, this would be a disaster.
She's going to be reelected,
It'd be a disaster if she wasn't reelected, right? She will be reelected.
Angela Merkel anunciou que vai tentar mais mandato como primeira-ministra da Alemanha. Seria o quarto dela liderando os alemães. Merkel sofreu uma derrota nas eleições regionais desse ano e os índices de aprovação têm diminuído, mas ela ainda tem apoio político.
So Merkel's going to be weaker. So the ability of the Europeans to respond effectively to the crises that occur, and the ability of Germany to count on a strong relationship with the United States, just not what it was. And so we have to recognize that 2017, the most important alliance in the world, right, the transatlantic alliance since 1945, is a principal casualty of the geopolitical recession.